record this. All right, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and open up our poster. I still have my poster demo that I was working on last class. This is where we were talking about bringing our photos in, taking backgrounds out. Oops, that is not what I meant to hit. So yeah, so I'm going to now move into type. And so let's work on this one. Move OB over a little bit. Okay. So the type tools is over here on our again, just a couple quick reminders. When we open up Illustrator, we want to make sure we're in the right workspace. So I'm using the layout workspace is what I have been using. But now that I'm moving into typography, to make it easier for me while I work on typography, I'm going to open up the typography workspace. So why don't you guys try this? Go ahead and click on the typography workspace. And the thing that's cool about this is it automatically opens up all the type tools real handy for me to use, and they kind of show up as we're going. So I'm going to start with the type tool, which is on the left. It's the T that's on the left. And you can see it has a little I-beam, a cursor for it. And I'm going to click and drag to draw a box. And it's going to automatically fill text. Let me zoom in so you can see that. It just automatically fills with text. And then I have this is the newest feature in Illustrator. For those of you who've used Illustrator before, this might be unusual, but you're going to see that I can literally, I'm just using my scroll on my mouse and I can kind of scroll through different typefaces. That's just using the little scroll feature on my mouse. Now, some of us don't have that. No big deal. You can click here and I can actually go right into all the different typefaces that I might be interested in. Now, you might be thinking, you know, I don't have a typeface here in my computer that I like. Like, let's say there's nothing I like. Let's say I'm just like, oh, I don't like any of these. No worry. We are all members of Adobe's Creative Cloud. And so we can add in typefaces from over 4,000 typefaces that are within the Adobe Fonts library. And so here's what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'm going to go up to my bar above my menu. Now, I'm hoping you guys can see this. I don't know if the video shows that I'm grabbing the Creative Cloud, which is that little logo in my bar that shows me the Creative Cloud. So I've clicked on it, and this is what shows up. Can you guys see that? Where I've highlighted it?
Can you do that one more time? I had something
Yeah,
in the way on my screen.
sure. Go all the way to the top, and there's this little, like, two circles interlocked. That's the Creative Cloud logo. And when you click on it, this window should pop up. And it's showing me all my Creative Cloud installed programs. Do you guys see that? Is that a yes?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just don't know if you guys can see what you guys can see when I'm sharing my screen. If you can see all the way up there. Okay. So now you'll see that I'm in here. Now this first column, I'm in the apps, the very up on the very far left, it says apps, and there's my apps. I'm going to scroll down to resource links, and you're going to see it says there's a little F and it says manage fonts. Do you all see this where my finger is right here? Go ahead and click that. And that's going to show you all the fonts you currently have added to your system. If you scroll up and down. What I'm going to do is go all the way over to the right, and there's a button that says Browse More Fonts. Do you all see this? Browse More Fonts. Click on that, and it's going to open a tab in my browser. And so once I do that, I am now in the Adobe Fonts. And this is a pretty powerful tool. It's allowing us to add fonts to, once we add fonts to our Adobe Creative Cloud, it adds them to both Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, whatever Adobe products we're using, these fonts will now be available. So there's a couple ways to use this. There's over 4,000 Adobe fonts. So you don't want to just go through here and just start scrolling endlessly, like as if you're on Instagram or something. No, no, no. That's just going to take too much time. I mean, think of how much time it would take you to go through 4,000 fonts. Too much. So they've given us some tags and some ways to kind of sort through this. So on the left here, you're going to see there is tags. And so I can choose some ideas based on some of these tags. So you're going to see, and I'm going to click more to show all of them. You have calligraphic, clean, brush pen, rough, friendly, geometric, rounded, cursive, art deco. You get the idea. There's all of these kind of terminologies, and you can choose any one that kind of fits your design. So thinking back to those keywords you're using for yourself, of how you're describing yourself and how you want your poster to describe yourself. So let's say you're choosing friendly and clean. Let's try friendly. Let's do friendly because I think we're all friendly. Let's start with friendly. We want our poster to be friendly. So I'm clicking friendly, and now it's going to immediately show me typefaces that are friendly. Now I can narrow this even further. So I can start with a tag like friendly. I can then decide, do I want sans serif? Serif are the ones that have the little feet on them. Slab serifs are, bigger feet, which are the serifs. Script is like you've handwritten it. Mono is a single line weight. And then there's a handwritten, like that could be like looking like chalk or something like that. So I'm going to say I want to be friendly. I want to look at sans serif. So I'm going to look at sans serif. And then I can decide on some properties to also narrow it down. So I can decide, do I want it to be a thin weight, a medium weight, or a bold weight? Do I want it to be a condensed, a very narrow, a normal, regular, or extra wide? Do I want the X height to be short or tall? Contrast to be lesser or greater? All of these things, italic, there's all these choices. And so you don't need to get into this granular like little areas, but you can. I'm not going to do this because I want to kind of see a bigger assortment. So I'm not going to click any of these, but I could. So I'm going to go over here now to my friendly. I can up the text size, the samples, big, and I can use any word I want in here. So let's say I wanted to say Amy, and Obi. That's what my poster is going to be. So I can look at this as big as I want to kind of get an idea. And since I'm old and I like things big so I can really see them, I'm going to go ahead and make it nice and big. So now I can see how my name, if that's going to be on my poster, is going to look. I also want to use an ampersand, so maybe I'm going to show that ampersand. And maybe I'm a little too big because I can't get enough. I want to get Obi in there too. I want to see how Obi's going to look. So there, I'm going to make it about that big. And now I can look and see what I have here. And here's something I want you to understand. So a typeface is a family. A typeface means you have regular, bold, italic, condensed. That's a family. A font is one member of the family. So a font would be Urbana bold. That's a font. A typeface is Urbana. Okay? That makes sense? So a typeface is the whole family, all the cousins, aunts, and uncles. A font is just one member of the family. Okay, so you want, when you're choosing a typeface for a project where you're going to have a headline, a subhead, maybe some body copy, you want it to have a big family or a big typeface so that you have some choices to make it all work together. So for example, Urbana here has 10 fonts. And if I go down here to neighbor, it has 18 fonts. So there's a lot of choices there. And so on and so forth. So I can go through. And so let's just choose neighbor because it has 18 fonts. So I'm going to click on it, double click. And so now I can see neighbor and I can see some example of it in working. I can see this example here, a couple examples here, and now I can see all the fonts within the family. So I can see thin, thin italic, extra light italic, light, light italic, regular, italic, medium, medium italic, semi-bold, and so forth, all the way down here to black and black italic. And so I can also learn about the type designer. Here's the type designer, Mark Caniso. And I can find out about the foundry. That's who produced the typeface. So PS Type is the foundry. And it's open, and it's owned by a single guy. So Mark is the owner and the foundry of PS Type, and that's pretty cool. So this is done by someone who's self-publishing, and Adobe has picked it up. So these are all the choices for neighbor. And so if I'm like, yeah, I love this, I can do a couple things. I can go up here and add the whole family if I want all the variations and abilities for me. And I tend to normally do that. I tend to normally just add the whole family because then I can choose all of them that I want. However, I could also go ahead and just choose specific fonts. Okay, so I'm adding the family means I'm adding the whole typeface. And down here, I could say, nope, I just want the regular, the semi-bold, the extra bold, and the black, or whatever. I could just go and choose certain ones. But then I would maybe not see the cool things of like, look at this, some of the fun elements that he has here in the thin and thin italic. Look at the Z in that. That's pretty funky. I kind of like it. So I'm going to go ahead and add the whole family. I like this. And then it just tells me the fonts are added to my Adobe apps, manage the fonts in Creative Cloud app, install fonts and use across other apps, view the fonts. Yep. Okay. So now it's saying it's available in my Adobe app. So let's go back to Illustrator. So I'm going to go back, click on Illustrator, and here I am back on my poster, and I'm going to look for neighbor in my fonts. Let's see. Hold on, I just saw it and now I passed it. Neighbor, 18 fonts. There they are. So there's neighbor. And that thin italic, I kind of really fell in love with. So let's use that. And now I'm going to say, you know what, this is going to be my headline. So I'm going to make it nice and big. And I'm going to say Amy, hold on, select all. Amy and Obi. That's my headline, I've decided. I went back to 12 points. I don't know why I did that. I'm going to go 100. Oh, and there we are. There's Amy and Obi. And then I'm looking at it and going, all right. I feel like I need a Z word because the Z is what I really kind of got excited. Now I can adjust my spacing between letters. I'm using my keyboard. I'm using Shift and Command and then the two brackets. So if you're into key commands, I'm holding down with my left hand the Shift and Command key. And then I'm using my brackets, my left bracket and my right bracket to make space open and close. And this is called tracking. And we're making it lesser or greater. I can also do that up here. Let me get my type tools. So here's my character style, not style, sorry, I don't want character style. I want my character up here. And if I keep it selected, there's two kinds of spacing. There's this, there's kerning, which is the space between two letters. But what I'm doing is tracking, which right now you can see it's at -40 because I can go in here and just do it with this as well. I don't have to use a key command. And I can adjust it. I can also just type a number in. And that's here under, I gotta move my Zoom stuff. It's in the way. There we go. It's up here under character. Okay, any questions on how to use Adobe fonts, choose a font, and then see it in Illustrator? Has everyone tried that? Is everyone able to add a typeface and then come back to Illustrator and see it? Give me a thumbs up if you were successful doing that. Give me a thumbs up if you tried it and you got it. Either a yes or a thumbs up. Just so I can see that we're all, I see a few of us. Okay. All right, so that's the first thing. And so the tools that we'll be using, and I'm going to pull these out. This is the character. The other tool, it looks like a paragraph symbol, and it is for the paragraph. So I'm going to click these two. These are the two you're going to use. There is another tool in here that could be confusing, and it's called character styles and paragraph styles. That's something else. We're not going to get into that. What you want is just the plain old character and paragraph. So here is the character, and I am using neighbor, thin italic. Now let's say I've decided, oh, you know what, thin italic, I want it a little heavier or different. I'm going to go into extra light italic, a little heavier. And you can see I have the whole family right here because I loaded the whole family in. And then I can say, oh, but look at just the regular italic. It kind of goes thick to thin. I don't think I recognized that when we were up on the site. Oh, and medium is kind of nice too. Maybe I want bold. Maybe I want extra bold. Maybe I want black. Oh, black's too big. Let's go back down to light italic. I think that's the one I like. All right, so now I can also change the color. So I can select my type. I can go over here and you see these are fill and stroke. I'm going to take the fill, double click on the fill, and I'm going to pick out my color. And then I'm going to say, okay. And there, now I have my color. And now I'm thinking, oh, I might want to do like an outline or something behind, something to give it a little pop it off this turquoise a little bit more. So there's a couple things I can try. I can copy this. So copying anything is a Command C is copy. And then Command F copies it in front. So I've done that, and I'm going to go ahead and go Object, Lock, Selection. And then now I'm going to select, which is basically the one behind. And I'm going to go over here to Stroke and double click on Stroke. And I'm going to grab white. I'm going to say, okay. And then I'm going to open up my stroke pad. I'm going to close artboards. And that's over here on the right. And it says stroke. It's 3 little lines. And I'm going to bump it up. And you can see it's showing me in real time because I'm previewing it as I'm doing it. I can decide how big I want it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why don't I just add a stroke directly to the typeface? So what I've done is I have 2 layers here. So I'm going to go to Object, Unlock All, and I'm going to show you why. Why I did a copy and then a paste is, hold on, I got to lock that other selection. Hold on a minute. Object, lock, selection. Okay. So here's my selection tool. So this is why. Notice how when I add a stroke to something, which is what this is, it adds the stroke on the inside and the outside. Now I can align the stroke just to the outside when it's an object, but it doesn't work on just on a type. Doesn't work. So I always sandwich my type when I want to create an outline. And so I layer just the type without an outline on top of the line type with an outline. So anytime you want an outline, you want to have a duplicate of it. So that's a trick of the trade, to know that whenever you want to outline something, that's 2 copies. You don't want to outline the actual typeface. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Any questions? Everyone try that? Y'all try to outline something. Okay, good. All right. Let me see. What else do I want to say about type? Oh, yeah. A couple other things. We talked about alignment. So let's talk about how we choose alignment. So let's say, I'm going to move OB over a little bit because I'm going to add my type over here, my body copy. So I'm going to go back to my type tool and I'm going to click and drag to make a text box. Now it's still going to always remember the last thing I did. So I had a 100-point type, so it's going to remember that. So I'm going to bring it back down to, let's say, 14 point. And I can have it fill with placeholder text by going up to the type, fill with placeholder text. And that's where it's going to be my text that I'm going to add about my poster. So let's talk about how we choose alignment. Here in the paragraph tab, you can see right now it's automatically going. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Oops, undo. It's already set to a left alignment, and you can see that right here. I'm going to select my text, and I can make it centered. However, centered is really difficult to read because we lose our place every time we go. So we never want to use centered for body copy. We always want to use left align because that's the way we naturally read. There's of course also right align. Again, very difficult to read. It's okay for a few words or a few lines of copy, but you wouldn't want a whole paragraph right aligned because you're always starting somewhere different and we read left to right. So for that reason, we always want to be left aligned. Now there's another option and it's justified, which means it creates like a block. But as you can see, what also it creates is this kind of weird spaces between all the words. Those are called rivers and holes. And it takes a lot of finessing to get those to be resolved. So at this point, I think the best, cleanest look you can use is flush left. And that's what I highly recommend doing for any amount of body copy. You do also want to make sure that you have enough contrast. So for example, I'm putting black copy on a blue background. That might not be the best contrast. So I might want to go over here to color again, make it white so I can really see it. And then I might like, oh, okay, that's better. I can also adjust, again, for contrast is decide, maybe my type, this light italic is just too light. Maybe I want to go medium and get rid of the italic so it's a little easier to read. Oh yeah, that medium weight, much easier to read. And getting rid of the italic for the body copy, I think is a good choice too. So you can have, for example, from the same family, the same typeface, I have the headline, which is an italic. I can have the body copy, which is in regular. I could have, let's see, I put that down here. I can have a subhead that is another version. Let's just call it sub. Oh my goodness. Subhead text here, and this could be, maybe we make this 21 and we make this maybe a semi-bold. Maybe we go a little bigger. Maybe we go 36. And we also go back, and right now it's still on that setting of tracking minus level tracking. So maybe I just go back to 0 because I'm no longer dealing with the italic. And the same down here. It's keeping those settings of, so I want to go back to 0 just so I can have it not be too tight. Again, I don't want it black. So I'm going to go back here to change the color of it to white. And now here's a case where I'm going to go ahead and do a right justified because what I want to do is line up the the end of the headline with the subhead. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to go to my rulers, and Command R, if you remember, turns our rulers on and off. And I'm going to pull out a guideline so that I can set up my text on a guideline. And then I'm going to float that over here. So some of the things to think about. So this is an alignment of the headline and the subhead. I'm doing a flush left alignment of my body copy. I'm going to move OB a little bit. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the bottom here. There we go. I might realize I don't have quite that much body, and then I might decide I want to fit that body copy. I think I want to put the body copy down here, but still align it to this edge. And I think I want to make it 13. Okay, so there is some ways to think about alignment. Now there's another thing to think about. Oh, we want to avoid this. So like notice down here, I have my type bumping into my image. So depending on what I can do here, I don't want to lose my last word. Let's say that's the type, the copy. I might want to take OB and shrink it a little bit so that I don't have it coming so close to the edge of my image. I'm going to shrink OB, and then I can fit that in there a little more comfortably. It's not right up against my image. Another thing to think about is a grid as we're kind of putting our elements on the page. And so Illustrator has a couple different ways that we can create grids. And of course, we have these guides that we can bring out and, kind of start making alignments with different elements you have here. And that can be very handy, when we want to balance out, what we're doing. Oh, actually, I see one other thing I want to address before I jump into grids. So notice how there's this little dot right here. That's telling me that there might be text in this box. So if I pull this down, see, you can see that there was hidden text. You see that? So every time you see this little box with the plus, that's telling you that hidden in this box is more text. And there it is. See it? So I have to pull down the text box to open it up. So the other way I can resolve that is like pull this over to say, okay, I want that all in one line. So I got to pull my text box over. Now I can fit my whole line of text there. So don't forget, if you see that little extra plus, that means there is text hidden in the box that we're not seeing. So keep that in mind when you're working. Okay, I'm going to pause here before I move into grids just to see if we have any other questions about the text tools we're going over. No questions? Okay. All right. So there's a couple different ways to look at grids and in Illustrator. And there's one that is over here on the left, which I'm going to, let me click on our little extra. Yeah, so if you click on the edit toolbar, you can see under the draw tools, there's a rectangular grid tool. I'm going to click on that. And that must be, isn't it letting me grab it? Oh, it is grabbing. Let me grab it. Okay, I just think it wasn't. So, okay, so I'm in the grid tool. It's showing up down here. I can go to the corner of my artboard and click and drag and pull out a grid. That's one way, and it's just going to give me whatever it has. But I want to choose a grid that's going to make sense for my design. So I'm going to double click once I have the grid tool selected. And I want to make sure that it's going to make the right size. So our paper size, our artboard size is 11 by 17. I can choose how many dividers I want, horizontal and vertical. So I'm going to say I want, let's say I want one every inch. So I could do 11 horizontal and 17 vertical. And I don't want to fill my grid. So I'm just using outside rectangle as frame. I'm going to say, okay. So here it is. If I were to make one matching exactly my page, 1 inch modules, and that's something I can work with. Or I'm going to say, let's do it maybe 5.5. And oh wait, no, sorry, not default size. I want the size to be the actual size. Sorry, I meant dividers. Let's make it 5 horizontal and 6 vertical. And then once I have that, I can grab my selection tool and move it into position. Now, this is something that I can have as just guides, which is what it is right now. I can make it over here on my layers. I can go new layer and call it grid. And then over here in my layers menu, grab the grid and move it into a grid layer. And now it's in a grid layer. And that way I can turn it on and off very easily. Oh, what did I do? You're not seeing it because I don't have it. Let me lock that. There. I just have it as showing when it's selected. I can go ahead and go with my stroke and pick a color. Let's just pick green. Say okay. And now I have it as an actual color, and I'm gonna move it all the way to the top. It's showing or is it not showing? Okay, it is showing. Oh, I think the green was just not showing on that turquoise color. Maybe I should do a warm color. Make it red. There we go. Now we can see it. Anyway, so you can turn it on and off. I think that's probably, for me, I think one of the easiest ways to work with some grids inside of Illustrator. And then you can move your text into those grids. So I can say, okay, I want to line this up here. I want to line, oh, I locked that stuff. Unlock it. And you can start grabbing things and moving them, as you see fit. And you can lock your grid so that it just stays put once you've built it. Hold on, let me grab my grid. I've already locked the grid, I think, right? Yeah, background. So anyway, you get the idea of building the grid in and kind of turning it. I think I accidentally moved my grid. To this layer 5 somehow. Oh, there it is. There's my grid. So let's move that back to the grid layer. If you're getting things that are getting confusing, sometimes you can take and lock the selection. So my background is kind of moving around. There's my grid, which has kind of gotten stuck with other things. I'm going to ungroup. I think I accidentally grouped it. There it is. There's my grid alone now. And yep, it's kind of tied with the Obi and Amy. I'm going to move those guys. Right, and my grid now I think is all by itself on a layer. There we go. And then I'm going to move this Obi and Amy, and Command G is group. And I'm going to move them to their own path. I'm going to make a new layer and call this my headline. And by clicking the green dot that's on my grid and moving it up to headline, that's effectively moving this type over. And now I can, and my grid, I can lock it down now. Oh, I changed color of my type accident. So we can go back and play with that. But basically, I find that layers can really help us organize different elements. And sometimes you can notice, because I was moving quite quickly, I wasn't always putting things on their own layer. But it's always easy to, you can still move them. So for example, this here is still on this layer 5. I'm going to move it into the headline layer because I want it to be grouped with my headline. And then if I want to lock down or close, just right now I have these other elements. Let's say I want to put all my copy on a layer. I can click these little dots and move them. Instead of headline, let's just call this copy. And I can keep all my copy together. So now if I click the copy, yep, it's just the copy that's coming and going. Notice how when I made a grid line on a layer, it stays with that layer. So for example, the copy layer has this grid line, this guidelines, or not grid line, guideline that I made. It's coming with it, coming and going with it. I can also delete guidelines. If I don't want a guideline, I can move them and I can delete them. I would need to use the direct select tool to select just that guideline, and then I can delete it. Regular select tool will move everything. I can put that back in. Okay, I'm going to pause here because I think I've gone through quite a few things, and I'm going to just check in with you all.